Well, I've known you for a while now. I mean, not that closely, but I remember being introduced to you with Brandon Harris's film Red Legs,
right?
And I was I wanted to show it at that bar in Brooklyn in Crown Heights.
Oh God, I remember that screening.
But do you remember we got there and
I remember everything about it.
The projector was broken, and the guy said,
that was
"Well,
a legendary
it's only in the
screening.
corner where the projector was." I'm like,
one of many legendary experiences during that time.
So, but I had to go and get like another projector. But you were so helpful, and I barely knew you. I think we had met maybe once or twice, potentially before that. Maybe that was the first time.
I was helpful. That's
you
nice.
were really helpful. No, you were extremely helpful.
In what way? What did I do?
You helped. Well, first of all, because I had to get another projector, the built-in one was all set up, but because I brought a second projector, because I couldn't use the first one, and people were sitting around waiting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I knew somebody in Park Slope, the guy who ran the bar, drove me over to Park Slope. I picked up the projector, brought it right back. So maybe it was like a half hour. But then I had to get that one wired up. And you were just very available to help and just setting it up and everything.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, I know how to do that stuff. I mean, I worked in theater and production for a long time. I've rigged a number of projectors. I'm sure that wasn't that.
Yeah, but Brandon was, just totally.
Well, I'm sure he was probably pissed. I mean,
he's the one that sort of hooked me up with the people at that bar, though. So
what bar was it? I don't remember.
The Franklin Park or something it's called. Oh, it's still there, shit. I'm sure. It's maybe not with the lights.
This is in Crown Heights.
Yeah, it was Franklin and.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly what the situation was.
And that was it. Anyway, we ended up doing the screening, and it actually came out. When you got the projector set up, and it actually worked. But in the audio, we got hooked up to the speaker system, so it ended up being fine.
That stuff's not impossible.
But those people, it's like they didn't tell me that the projector was.
I mean, what do you expect,
damaged,
man? We're doing a screening series.
But they wanted to do
I
know, and
did we get free drinks?
Wanted to
I don't remember anything about that part of it.
I don't either.
Man, I was probably.
I'm sure I got a few.
That's like a different lifetime ago. For
me, it was
man.
a long time ago.
I mean, it wasn't that long, right? It was. Was that 2012?
Probably around there.
Yeah, that's like a totally different person at this point.
When did Red Legs come out?
Yeah, 2012.
So it had to be before that, and before it ended up on some streaming.
Yeah, I think it came out around that time. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, but I was trying to do the guy a favor. Not a favor, but like just express my... because he got me. I used to get paid for those things. I can't remember how much they paid me, and it was always a headache because besides even just the technical part of it, the bartenders didn't want this because it was like they couldn't sell their drinks that well when the lights were off and we're watching a film in there. Mm-hmm. It was just like like they had successful.
That was the beginning of Film Wax. That whole thing, or that was just a separate thing.
That was a separate thing.
All right.
I don't remember the chronology of everything, but I had already been doing a film series in Park Slope.
Right.
And that would go well because...
And we should have played that one, huh?
I had stopped doing it there by then.
Okay.
So I'm thinking...
I see.
Yeah, that started in 2011.
Right.
So it could have been already even 2013 now.
That's possible. Oh, actually, that sounds like that makes more sense.
Yeah, because I think it already had like festival screenings already.
Yeah, because it had been... It played for a while.
Because I had seen it, and I don't remember where, but I remember seeing it and then being introduced to you. That was my introduction to you, seeing that film.
Yeah.
And just thinking, oh, this kid is... he's really committed to this movie. And then you'd hear Brandon wanted to cast, he wanted to put me in the next, but I don't think he's made a film since. He's now at Amazon. And
Brennan has explored many walks of life in terms of his creative pursuits. He's at Amazon now, but he also put out a book, and he was a teacher for a while. That guy's like
he's
a
real
wonderkin.
Yeah,
that
he's
guy's a piece of work, man. I mean, he could do pretty much anything.
Especially when all this was happening, very young.
I mean,
he's contributed to Filmmaker magazine.
That is someone who, from my first memory of him, is an extremely... Sorry, I'll sit closer.
That's right.
That's someone who, from a very young age, I was always very impressed with, in terms of his knowledge, but also his commitment level. He's a real energy. He's not. He wouldn't even be. It would be inaccurate to even describe him as a talent. that guy. It would be an understatement. I have only the highest praise for him. We're still very close.
Well, that's good to hear.
Yeah.
And now, flash forward about 6 years, and here we are. You have written a play.
Yeah.
Called The City of Refuge.
A City of Refuge. Yeah, that's the name of it.
Okay, and it's going to play, just so people know, from the December 4th through the 22nd, Wednesday, but the Wednesdays, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sundays.
Yeah, 5
So
shows
dark
a week,
Monday,
3
Tuesday.
weeks. Yeah.
In that time frame. But from the 4th through the 22nd, excluding Mondays and Tuesdays, the show is going to have a daily evening.
Yep.
8 o'clock.
15 performances. It's a limited engagement.
Okay. And it's going to be at the center at West Park at 165 West 86th Street. So we gotten that out of the way, but we can talk about a little bit about the play.
Okay.
But first of all, who are the Primitive Grace Theater Ensemble?
Oh, wow. A pretty amazing group of people. The company itself, the Ensemble, is founded and is artistically directed by Paul Calderon and David Zayas.
I've heard of, maybe it's not the same Paul Calderon, I don't know, or maybe I'm mistaken, but is that a guy, is that a real theater guy?
Oh, yeah, they're both,
they're
both, serious figures in New York theater for the last 30 plus years.
Okay.
Paul was one of the founding members of Labyrinth. Lab.
Oh, yeah, that's probably where.
And David is a member of Lab, the theater group.
Okay, so
yeah, they are.
I've seen some of their work.
Oh, yeah, I mean,
and is Philip Seymour Hoffman was involved in that?
Yeah, he was in it. Yeah.
And
John Ortiz, all types of people.
Yeah.
Elizabeth Rodriguez, Ron Cephas Jones, like Stephen Adley Gurgis. That's a major group in New York theater, and Paul and David formed this company about 5 years ago, I believe. I've been working with them just for about a year. I knew Paul. I studied with Paul, and I was lucky enough to work with him on a show of his last year and early this year, which was a pretty amazing, intense, informative experience. And I came into the fold of this group through that relationship, and the group is based on, I guess, the way that it's been explained to me is a method of work which is referred to as the Duende method, and that is a concept that relates directly to Lorca's use of the term. Duende is a Spanish word that
the poet.
Yes, Lorca the poet. Yeah,
I mean, he's a world famous poet.
Yeah, Lorca wrote of Duende as being an ethereal, at times intangible spirit that is as inherently linked to creation as it is to death, and it has a number of different interpretations. In the case of this company and its creative pursuits, I understand it to be sort of intrinsically linked to the fire that breeds the most explosive and confrontational and propulsive of creative work, dramatic work, and I understand it to be the spark behind any provocation in an artistic form. So on stage, it can take the form of a challenge and an experience which is at one point incredibly engaging and to an immersive extent, and at the same time can be repellent and agitating for an audience. And it, really, as I said, working with Paul on his show this past year and studying with him, it really was a seriously transformative experience, and at the opportunity to work with his group, which had already been established some years before I was even made aware of them. it was an opportunity that I could not by any means even consider passing up. To me, I'm someone who has certainly attempted a great many things in my life to varying degrees of failure and frustration. And so, to have come across a group of people who, in no small way, are entirely devoted, both individually and as a totality, toward true expression in a dramatic form. Yeah, I mean, it was no small moment for me. And so certainly this show would not be happening and could not have taken the shape that it's taken and have been developed to such an extent without the guiding hand of Paul Calderon and David Zayas, and they are truly integral to every aspect of the piece. Yeah, and the actors in the show are ensemble members and friends of the ensemble, and we are as a group unified through our disparate experiences and varying levels of training and different backgrounds by this company's ethos, which is really, for lack of a better word, one that's based on confrontation and challenge. Duende. Yeah.
I've been curious to reading some Lorca, actually, because I was just reading a book about Leonard Cohen.
Oh, yeah.
And that was his guiding light.
Yeah.
I mean, Lorca. He named his daughter after Lorca.
Mm-hmm.
But, it was just so incredible to hear about his connection to that poetry, how it informed him as a poet. Because, Leonard Cohen was a poet for years before he started writing music. He was he became a musician in his 30s. So, but he had been a successful poet in Canada. And, I was like, I've always been curious, but I've just not read a lot of poetry. But
yeah, Lorca's a powerful channel of all manner of recollection and spirit. He's pretty interesting. I've not read as much of him as I would like to, but I certainly was trying to think of the name. I was pretty affected by it. I'll think of the name in a moment. There's one poem of his that really, really stands out to me, and now I can't recall it. I can't recall the name of it.
We could fix this too in the edit.
Yeah. I mean, poetry is just one aspect of it, though. It's a conceptual treatise as much as it's poetry. His writing on Duende, I could share it with you. It's pretty powerful to read, and it's the driving force behind.
I want to know more about it.
Yeah.
A City of Refuge, again, is the title, and you wrote it, and you're directing it, so
That's
congratulations
correct.
On that. That's
Thank you.
Heavy-duty stuff, more than you maybe bargained for, but...
certainly more than I may have bargained for, but I'm willing to buy the ticket and take the ride,
It's going up, let's see, oh my goodness.
It's going up Wednesday.
Wednesday, man, you are...
Yeah.
Well, you're in tech, so
yeah, I'm in
tech,
getting close to the finish line.
That's good. Yeah. Well, we'll keep you there. And you chose to show it at this... in an actual church.
Yeah, it's a site-specific piece.
A church.
Yeah, it's deconsecrated is the term.
It's meaning that it takes the religious maybe component or the dimension from the church. So you're not doing something that is...
Deconsecration really just has to do with a seal, and I actually think that there still are services that are held at this church, but I don't believe that it's a congregation that relies on the seal of a consecrated space. And I think that's just depends on the faith. This piece takes place over the July 4th weekend in 1992 and is set against the backdrop of the Washington Heights riots, which are
never heard of it.
Right.
Yeah.
Largely overlooked and forgotten moment in history.
Well, it was literally 3 or 4 months after some other riots that occurred in the country.
Yes.
So
Yes.
that got a lot more
yes,
far
and
more
it was
attention.
the summer before the far more well-known Crown Heights
No, it was
riots. After, yeah. So
which is
that's
the
what I
point.
meant, sorry.
Yeah. No, but so
Yeah.
that spring were the LA riots, and which were maybe only 4 days long, but the aftermath that was, and the time leading up to it, there was a lot more. It's a period.
You have to question the media narrative behind
That's a good
these. I think to not view these events through a prism of
Skepticism.
just scrutiny. I don't think that would be fair. I think that certain events take hold of the cultural consciousness because they are easily parsed and perhaps easily decided in terms of their narrative, right? So I think in the case of the LA riots and the Crown Heights riots, which are not events that I lived through or experienced, neither is the event that this show takes place against. I think those events, are viewed through a racial lens that is very comfortable for media to characterize, and I think that is how history is decided and how history is recorded through media and through retelling. And if you ask someone what those events of unrest were about, the words that come up will reflect a racial lens, a racial bias, and certainly those identifiers are not at all insignificant as to how these events are remembered and understood, right? And so I think if it's as simple as saying that the Washington Heights riots were in no less a way motivated by racial tension, that's just one viewpoint. But I think that it says a lot that this event is largely forgotten and largely perhaps in many ways swept under the rug. But to me, when I look at it through my own research and my own perspective, I see it as being entirely inseparable from the trajectory of change that the city has undergone in the last 27 years. It's, to me, no small coincidence that these events occurred, and in the months that followed, Dinkins' tenure ended and Giuliani's tenure began. Giuliani, a figure who is still perhaps unbearably ever present in media and in the political culture of the country. And I don't think that you can separate the transformative path of New York as an entity, as a city, from that change. And I don't think that you can also divorce this event from that changeover from Dinkins to Giuliani. I think it had everything to do with his success. This was the second time that he had run against Dinkins. And he entirely aligned himself with the PBA. He appeared with the officer in question whose shooting incident propelled the events of the Washington Heights riots. He appeared with that officer at a rally, not shortly after the events of July. So to me, I think it's at very least extremely interesting that no one recalls these events. And
but the whole concept of that he ran on, if I was right, was about cleaning up all the petty crime that people were sick of. And also, let's face it, there was probably somebody was whispering in his ear, there's a financial opportunity here that's so huge in terms of bringing in a lot more tourism.
100%.
And we're going to line everybody's pockets with the amount of money we can bring in. We just have to clean up this thing. People can't see the homeless on the streets, and they can't see, the squeegee guys, and we can't see. Get rid of it. And it's
the element of crime and the factor of poverty into an appearance, right, for a municipality is something that reflects in certain members of the population's eyes, poorly on the desirability factor, right, for the place. But to me, I think even that is shortchanging, or at very least, perhaps overlooking the source of those factors. I think the situation that contributed to the unrest in the Heights in 1992 is not so simple as what it may have been characterized as in the mayoral race of that year.
No, I'm sure not. But a little bit of the background of this incident was that a man of color was killed by an officer. He was unarmed, and he was killed by an officer. And then there was riots following.
He was shot and killed by a member of the NYPD 34th precinct. Yeah, July 3rd, 1992.
Was he a beloved Dominican guy? And was he a popular guy in the neighborhood, or was it just the last straw for
I think perhaps both are true. I did not live there. I was not born there. It's not my my own experience.
But because of, like you said, where you only get so much information because the media and the powers that be are putting out a particular narrative, and it wasn't like trying to build this guy up as a possible.
No,
this
is
probably a troublemaker that had it coming at the very
accounts
worst.
Branded Mr. Garcia quite clearly as a drug dealer, and and it even went further in some cases. The piece and my own perspective do not attempt to weigh in on the facts.
Is it a political play?
I think it's a play about failure, and I think it's a play about people who find themselves in times of crisis, perhaps unfortunately coinciding. I think my opinions politically are not as interesting as provoking an audience to examine their own perspective of events. And I think the piece exists more as a metaphorical analog to what occurred than anything. It's not a piece of historical fiction. It's I
understand.
It uses the real life event as a
catalyst.
Yeah, it is in every way a catalytic premise that allows us to do a few things: examine the crisis of faith that exists in a community that is on both sides of the coin, devoted to faith and raised as a faithful community, and then on the same tip, plagued by hardship and struggle. And it deals with addiction. It deals with the perhaps unsettling unreliability of narrative and how truth is very, very subjective to change depending on perspective and retelling. And most importantly, the piece contends with the comfort myth of crisis unity. So the commonly held belief that people in times of toil and turmoil band together and unite. This is not my perspective. This is not the piece's perspective. So in this piece, what we attempt to illustrate is how things fall apart. Mm-hmm. And it's not a romantic comedy, you know. It's a, you know, I could say any number of things about it. It's,
okay. But your main character, is it fair to say that one of your main characters is a
there are 6 characters, okay, and
right.
The piece revolves around a
service,
a deconsecrated church.
It takes place in a deconsecrated,
yes,
and it actually is supposed to be deconsecrated in.
Yes, it's in the process of being closed. Basically, the play opens and the church, St. Christopher's and the Annunciation, is being closed. Coincidentally, mm-hmm, at the same time as this unrest is occurring, and mm-hmm, there is an array of personalities who come through the church on its last day, and as the events outside the church become increasingly heightened and tense and chaotic, slowly over the course of the second act, people begin to take shelter in the church.
I see.
People from varying walks of life, people who have conflicts with each other, people who have crossed paths in the past and are forced to reckon with each other in close proximity, people of varying ethnic backgrounds and class backgrounds. And yes, the main character is a priest, mm-hmm, who is played by a pretty incredible performer named Luke Edward Smith. Mm-hmm. And that character is a man on the edge, just trying to keep it together. And it deals with the challenge of how do we forgive each other, but also how do we just coexist in particularly in times where it seems like things aren't going to get better. So mm-hmm, I feel like I may not be articulating it very well. But yeah, it's the main character is a priest, mm-hmm, who has been scandalized and whose parish is being closed, whose congregation is effectively deserted him, and whose ministry is effectively being taken away from him. It's a priest whose ministry has been devoted toward fostering abandoned children and also administering substance abuse counseling to members of the community. And the church's closure is obviously affecting him and the other members of the cast, adversely.
And you wrote this all by yourself. You created all these characters all by your lonesome.
I've written so many things all by myself. That's not a very that's not really tooting anyone's horn, No, I mean I've written any number of paperweights that will never be read. So this is just
that's good. Well, this one will be seen, and now. But the unfortunate thing, I guess, is that, or necessary, if not unfortunate, though, is that you also have to just sort of end up being a barker for your own play. Like you have to get out there and then sell it.
I'm not so good at it, I find.
Well, it's not the skill set that is usually aligned with a playwright.
I also don't do any of the kind of like internet salesmanship things that we're expected to do as
other than an email blast.
That's it. That's all I did, and even that took a certain tongue biting on my part, but
that's the first one I've got from you.
I don't tend to try and trumpet my own work, really. I've never been good at that, but I will say that this situation, this project, the people involved, each cast member, each member of the creative team, Paul and David, each member of the company who has contributed no small amount of energy and and assistance and support to the project's fruition, that's something that to me speaks volumes in a way that, you know, I can't really even describe. I don't think I have the words for it. To see a group of people truly get behind something that I did, you know, that's, you know,
great.
I can't not try and invite people, you know. I mean, I
understand.
I mean, the work also, the actors are each so incredible in their own way that it's, you know, I couldn't not try and bring people to see that. It's a pretty incredible experience watching them work, and there are things that occur on this stage and in that space that I've never really seen in a theatrical context. So, you know.
I'm looking forward to seeing it. Again, where do people go to get tickets, by the way?
I think there's a website.
Okay.
I think we're selling tickets through, I think it's Eventbrite.
Okay.
I believe
but you can do
I believe they can go to bit.ly/primitive grace or a City of Refuge.
Okay, Google that, a City of Refuge.
Yeah, that's the name. Eventbrite has tickets, I believe.
Okay. Well,
that's
we'll put
the name
link.
of the site. Why don't you just put it there so people can fucking click it or whatever?
Yeah,
you know?
they'll fucking click it.
I'm not able to really say.
Limited engagement. 15 performances again, starting Wednesday, the 4th of December. You know, I've grown up in New York and I've seen theater become very corporatized like everything else in New York, and it's and you know, some of that's very entertaining. I'm not taking away, but if you're trying to see something that's a bit more alternative to that, you have to look a little harder, and you have to, you know, really invest yourself in order to, if you're looking to be have a, let's say, a transcendent experience, which is why I go to the theater. I'm hoping for that experience. I mean, but again, you can go to The Little Mermaid on Broadway musical, I suppose.
Or King Kong. I heard they have King Kong.
King Kong is on Broadway. Yeah,
that sounds exciting.
Well,
I've never seen it, but what did I see? Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen. Oh no, I saw a funny thing happen on the way to the Forum once when I was a kid with Nathan Lane.
I think. Right.
That was pretty cool.
Yeah, I saw.
That's the only thing. I don't think I've ever been to
a
big, like, I worked on, you know, off Broadway theaters and musicals for a long time, but you know, I never really went to one. It's not my
first
thing
Broadway
so
shows growing up here were Broadway musicals.
Oh yeah.
Well, yeah, we had to go see Annie and Grease and The Wiz.
The Wiz. Oh, I love the movie. Yeah. Sidney Lumet.
Of course.
Oh fuck, that's a.
Well, if you're going to have Diana Ross and Michael Jackson and a musical together, you want Sidney Lumet to direct it.
Isn't Richard Pryor in it? Yeah, he is.
No,
what?
Nipsey Russell.
What?
Nipsey Russell played the Tin Man. No, Richard Pryor, I don't think is in it.
Oh, okay. Why did I misremember that? Yeah, I love The Wiz, man. Yeah, Grease. I like Annie, too. Also, didn't John Huston direct Annie? I love the movie of Annie. Yeah, Albert Finney. The first and Tim Curry.
Yes.
Oh, man, that shit is fucking amazing,
too. The original movie, yeah.
Yeah.
Carol Burnett, I think.
Carol Burnett, exactly. Yeah, Miss Hannigan. Oh, man,
it's a good cast.
That's a good one. I highly recommend Annie. To all you listeners out there, check it out.
Don't go see.
I'll never forget that movie because I have that image of Punjab, the like attaché, pulling her up with his turban into the helicopter at the end. I'll never forget that image. It's really shocking. Shocking. It's like seared into my memory.
Well, see, that's the kind of, when we're getting back to the beginning, full circle. It's like you'd come out of there and then you want to extend that fantasy narrative, as you were putting it. And so you'd walk out, and for the rest of the day, you'd be still in that space.
Definitely.
You know, that
lot of movies had that effect. Yeah, I watched American Gigolo.
What? That's a sloppy transition.
No. I was gonna say though, I watched it. I watched it this morning. And it's one of my favorite movies. And I watched it this morning, and I remembered at the scene where Bill Duke goes over the balcony. I remember every time. I've seen the movie hundreds of times. I saw it. Oh yeah, it's one of my favorites. Beautiful. It's a fucking masterpiece. I saw it that movie when I was very, very, very young.
Too young, some might
Way
say.
too young. But I didn't see the whole thing.
Oh.
I only saw the scene where Bill Duke goes over the balcony, and I saw it as a very young kid, like maybe like 7, and I remember being so shocked when his foot comes out of the cowboy boot and the image of Richard Gere holding the cowboy boot. I remember being so shocked by that as a child that when I when I grew up, and I think I saw the actual movie when I was a teenager, when I finally saw the movie, I didn't know it was the same thing. And then when that scene came, I got chills. Like, I was like, oh, fuck, I remember seeing this as a little kid. And that's actually happened with so many movies like that. Like a Prince of the City, I saw maybe like a piece of it when I was a child. And then later on in life, I saw the movie. And when that scene came, I was like, oh, fuck, I've seen this. Too. Yeah. Well, I'm a big fan of his, you know.
Got to meet him.
Oh, shit. Man, I'm fucking jealous. He was on this show?
No.
Oh, okay.
Unfortunately, I hadn't started it yet, but I met him. He was at Lincoln Center. They were showing When the Devil
Before the Devil Knows
You're Dead, and so he was a bit around at the festival.
Right.
And I went to some like little thing. I don't remember, and he was just hanging there. I said, "Listen, I have to shake your hand," and somebody took a picture too. So.
Yeah.
But it was like I couldn't believe Sidney Lumet.
Yeah, Lumet really.
That movie is sort of over the top as it is. That Before the Devil Knows You're Dead, still, I mean, is not the movie of an 80-something-year-old guy. That is such an incredibly there's a lot of overwrought performances in it.
Yeah, it's not my favorite.
It's not my
by
favorite,
any means.
but it's
I
not
actually
the
think
film.
It's pretty
but
frail. But I think
you should see it again.
I have seen it. I have seen it, and not in the
it's not easy
past.
to see. Okay, because it's not available on any platform.
But the movie, I actually have always felt that if the movie revolved around the Philip Seymour Hoffman character, and that was the movie, then I would
less about the Ethan Hawke character. You mean, or just more focus?
I think if it was just about his character, Hoffman's character, that would be a completely different experience watching that movie, because I have never felt anything less than compelled watching that performance in that movie. But to be honest, I found it's just not my favorite. I think if the movie had been just that, it would perhaps even have been one of my favorite movies.
It's like a Greek tragedy, though. But, it's like...
I mean...
So what was the other one that was, like, supposed to be... Louis C.K. series, which my, of course, ex-wife was on. But, that thing he did, Horace and Pete,
I have never seen
Steve
any
Buscemi
of that guy's stuff.
Oh.
Yeah.
It was like one of the more... I mean, until that point, I would say what he was doing was pretty interesting, even though I didn't...
Wait, what's the crossover? What's the connection?
Oh, it's just like another Greek tragedy
I don't know.
kind of tragic
I don't know
thing.
anything about
it was very
that.
inspired by the structure
This is
of
the
it.
guy...
Louis C.K.?
Yeah, I'm not a fan. Right? Yeah.
Well, there aren't too many left. But it's funny. Albert Finney, of course, was in Before the Devil Knows You're Dead too, which it's an interesting. We come around to that actor as well.
Oh man, Albert Finney.
Yeah, I know, one of my favorites.
He made this movie, The Dresser.
Yeah.
Whew,
nice.
that shit.
Saw it when it came out.
And what?
Saw it in the movie
really?
theater.
Wow.
Yeah, I saw it with my sister. I remember. I don't know why. Because back then
and
they
Tom
weren't...
Courtney,
yes,
right? Tom Courtney.
Well, it was a successful play.
Right.
And then they did they were in the film version. I mean, I think Tom Courtney was the original.
Oh, okay.
In the show.
There's an Albert Finney movie. Oh man, I fucking can't believe I'm forgetting
Wolfen.
No,
kidding.
I love Wolf. Don't even get me started on Wolfen.
No, it's a great one.
That's Whitney Schreiber, that guy?
What?
That's his name, the writer?
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
But I can say it's an interesting...
That writer is the same guy who wrote Communion.
Oh.
That they made the movie with Walken about the alien abduction.
Oh,
you haven't seen that?
I don't know if I saw that.
Oh man, that shit is priceless, man.
I will see it.
That shit is amazing.
Wolfen's an interesting story about New York real estate.
Right, but also
and about how they built on like ancient.
Of course, Edward James Olmos is in Wolfen.
God, yeah,
it's a great. That's a great movie. But Finney also made this movie, and now I'm forgetting what it's called. It's black and white, and he plays
an earlier film.
Yeah, he's very
one
young
of those
in it.
kitchen sink ones?
No, he plays a serial killer. And it was a bomb.
Oh, okay.
But it's a fucking masterpiece. And now I'm fucking forgetting the name of it. Shit.
Well, he was one of that generation of angry young men, like Richard Burton, and there were these different actors that were, I guess...
Peter O'Toole, Oliver Reed, and
Oliver Reed for sure, and then
Richard Harris.
Yeah, they were all part of that generation, and they all made these films like Lindsay Anderson, directed. And
I love If, Lindsay Anderson.
That's a great one.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of all that stuff.
But Albert Finney, I guess he was able to cross over pretty early.
Another great Albert Finney movie is this movie called Looker, which is a Michael Crichton movie.
That must have been kind of 80s era.
It's very good. I highly recommend that.
Mm-hmm.
Looker.
Sounds like it.
This is my...
There was Michael Crichton. Well, he did Jurassic Park.
No, come on. Right? Michael Crichton did a lot more than Jurassic Park.
Coma, was that his?
Coma and Andromeda Strain, right? Isn't right. Oh, no, that's Robin Cook, right?
See, you may be right. But it's interesting.
Wait, no, maybe Coma's Robin Cook. I don't remember now. Mm-hmm. Now I'm fucking up right now. Mm-hmm. What's Crichton did Great Train Robbery, right? With Sean Connery and Donald Sutherland, and he also did this movie called Runaway with Tom Selleck and Gene Simmons. Yeah, I like some Michael Crichton stuff, and the original Westworld with Yul Brynner and James Brolin. Yeah, I'm a fan of that. I never saw the TV show, but I like that movie.
Wasn't Richard Benjamin in that? Or am I remembering? No, wait.
That's Ira Levin, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I never saw that.
So you remember films by the writers? Interesting.
No, not always. Who directed?
Well, you are.
No, yeah, I don't remember.
Well, not Ira Levin. That's for sure.
I don't remember who directed it.
Richard Benjamin, though, was in Westworld with Yul Brynner. And, because it was James Brolin and Richard Benjamin.
Yeah.
And Yul Brynner was the robot. That's right.
Yeah,
that's right. How could you forget that? It's the
Yul Brynner,
favorite thing I ever seen him do.
Yul Brynner is incredible.
Much better than he was than in, The King and I.
You're not a fan of The King and I?
Not the musical, but not the filmed version.
What about, isn't he in Anastasia, too?
Probably. Yeah, and he was in...
Yeah, Yul Brynner is a pretty amazing actor.
Oh, yeah, but he was one of those guys that wanted top billing, whatever he got on.
I don't know. And wouldn't you give it to him?
No, but he was in movies with, like, ensemble films, like with Steve McQueen, and then they're arguing over...
I've seen the one, what's it, the Poppy movie about the opium trade that he's in? Yeah, I'm a fan of Yul Brynner in general. He made a bunch of movies I like. He's in Magnificent Seven too, but
yes,
I never saw that really. I saw parts of it when I was a kid. Yeah. How we start talking about this?
I don't know. We got off the beaten path a little bit, but it's fun.
That's my favorite shit. Being off the beaten path. I don't feel so good when I'm in a straight line.
Well, you did fine. You did fine. We didn't stay in a straight line for most of it, but when we were within this the segment when we were talking about it, the City of Refuge, you did well, and City of Refuge happens to be written and directed by Evan Kyler Louison, who did not, to his great fortune, decide to also act in this piece, because I think that he'd just be a puddle of something on the floor right now.
I'm not. No, I know. There's no part of it.
It was a wise choice to do that.
Oh, there was never any concern. I'm kind of not in that world anymore.
Oh, you're not doing as much acting? Is that what you're saying?
No, I've been writing now.
That's good.
I don't really
anyway, life
flow that way.
That's what they say. And again, it's going to be up on the Upper West Side at the center at West Park at 165 West 86. We'll put the link to get tickets up on there. I'm going to go.
Cool.
And I'll tell them, and we're going to post this, and then I'll use that as a way to plug the. I'll bring a friend.
Thank you. Oh yeah. Everybody, bring a friend.
Please bring all your friends.
Yeah, that'd be cool. I'm eager to share the experience with everyone, because it's pretty, as I said, pretty unbelievable. Just even being the person who wrote it, watching what these performers are doing, it's special, and it should be a challenging experience for all.
There'll be. And are you doing conversations afterwards? Or
We are doing 2 talkback events. Okay. One the 8th and one the 15th. They are with
those are Friday nights.
Those are Sunday nights.
I'm sorry.
They are,
for Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Yeah.
Oh, you're right. Sunday. So the Sunday evening.
Yeah, the 8th and the 15th, we are doing talkback events with members of the cast and company who are people who lived through the riots, and we are also fortunate to have a guest, Mr. Robert W. Snyder, who is a former professor of journalism at Rutgers University, who wrote an amazing book called Crossing Broadway, Washington Heights, and the Promise of New York, which was absolutely instrumental in the research of this piece, and has been a very, very supportive figure in the piece's development, and he will also be joining us for those evenings, for those talkbacks, and
That's
it
great.
should be interesting depending on people's response to the piece. But yeah, there's someone in the cast who is from the Heights and lived through the riots, and then someone in the company also has his own perspective. David Zayas, who's the co-artistic director, was actually a cop in the 34th precinct and was in the riots. So we have different experiences coming in, and then Mr. Snyder is also going to be there speaking.
Great.
So answering questions. Yeah, it should be an interesting conversation piece at very least.
Thank you for stopping by and doing this.
Oh yeah,
podcast.
thanks for having me, man. It's cool. It's cool. We should do it again sometime. Maybe if this isn't the last thing I do, we'll have another thing to plug.
You come in whether you don't have to
just talk about Sidney Lumet movies. I could do that all day, man.
I know.
I could do that all day. Yeah.
All right.
Cool.
Done.
Thank you.